you might think you live in a democracy. But a famous study shows that the preferences of average citizens have near zero impact on whether laws actually pass. This is the core of an oligarchy, a Greek word meaning ruled by the few. In this system, political power rests with a tiny elite segment of society, usually defined by noble titles or extreme wealth. Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, saw oligarchy as a corrupt version of an aristocracy. In an aristocracy, a virtuous minority rules for the general good, but in an oligarchy, they rule only for their own selfish interests. While almost all governments are run by a small number of people, the difference is how they get and keep that power. There is a famous theory called the Iron Law of Oligarchy, created by sociologist Robert Michels in 1911. He argued that every complex organization eventually becomes an oligarchy. As a group grows, it needs professional managers, and this leadership class eventually focuses on staying in power rather than helping its members. A classic historical example is the Republic of Venice. For centuries, it was run by the Great Council, which was initially open to many citizens. But in 1297, they passed a law called the Serrata, or the lockout, making membership hereditary. They even created a golden book to list the only families allowed to rule, eventually leaving power in the hands of just 1% of the population. In the modern world, some experts argue that the United States acts as a civil oligarchy. In this system, the super-rich do not need to hold office themselves because they use their wealth to influence those who do. They do this through professional lobbying, massive campaign donations, and by shaping what the public thinks. Political scientists Gillens and Page looked at nearly 2,000 policy issues in the US and found striking evidence for this. They found that when a majority of average citizens want a law, it has almost zero impact on its success. However, when economic elites want a law, the chance of it passing is very high. This happens because oligarchs are focused on wealth defense. Their main goal is to protect their property from being taken and their income from being taxed. In the US, they have built a massive income defense industry of high-priced lawyers and lobbyists to ensure they keep as much money as possible. This is different from Russia, where a few men got rich after the fall of the Soviet Union by taking over state-owned oil and gas companies. When Vladimir Putin took over, he created a power vertical. He arrested or exiled the oligarchs who fought him and replaced them with state oligarchs who manage massive companies like personal fiefdoms. You might think oligarchy is good for growth because it protects property, but in the long run, these societies usually fall behind democracies. Oligarchs use their power to create entry barriers to stop new competitors. They block new inventors and entrepreneurs from entering the market to protect their own monopoly. A historical example is the difference between the Caribbean and the northeastern United States in the 1800s. Caribbean islands were run by wealthy plantation owners who had no interest in letting new industries grow. Meanwhile, the more democratic US allowed outsiders to start businesses and innovate, eventually leapfrogging the Caribbean's economy. So, is the decline of democracy inevitable? Some thinkers believe in anacyclosis, a theory that government moves in a cycle from monarchy to aristocracy to democracy and finally into tyranny. Staying a democracy requires constant work because as wealth concentrates at the top, those few people gain more power to rig the system. Understanding that oligarchy is a natural tendency of power is the first step to seeing our own world clearly.